We're going to be making a book sleeve from Dollar Tree fabric. Watch me so I can show you how it's done. The outer fabric is going to be measured 13 by 16. The inner fabric is going to be 13 by 17. And I'm going to show you guys later on why I added the extra inch for the lining. Now that the fabric is cut out, I'm going to make my straps. Now the straps are 3.5 by 16. They're going to be folded in half, and I'll show you what we do with that a little bit later. Now I'm going to use my polyester batting. I believe this is a 1/2 inch. I'll put in the description exactly which one I use. I really like this one because it adds a little bit of firmness and fluff at the same time. I'm going to be quilting the fabric today, so what I'm doing is just lining up 4-inch squares. I think the 4-inch squares go over well with this type of bag, and you can actually quilt it any way you would like. I just think this looks a little bit better for what I'm doing. I quilt the 4-inch squares, and then I go ahead and I sew around the circumference of the fabric. Now, you don't have to do this. I do it because I like the neater look, and I don't have any puckering at the edges when I'm going to try to put my bag together. The fabric is flat and laid down, and I usually don't have any issues when I sew completely around. I just prefer it and like the look of that. Now we cut off all the excess batting. Just go square it around, make it look neat, so that way everything lines up good. Now I pinned the sides because now we're going to go over to the machine and sew the sides of the fabric together. We're going to leave the top open. I'll start by sewing my straps. I just go across the top and then down the open edge. Now I like to go diagonal at the top, and I'll show you why I do that. I just think it makes the straps look a little bit more presentable, leaving a point at the top like you would see on a bow. So it looks really good that way, and I'll show you how it looks when we turn it out. Now I don't have any fancy tools to turn my straps inside out. I use a pair of medical forceps, and those work just fine for me. I also use a wooden chopstick to poke out all the corners, and the forceps make it really easy to do. Now we're going to sew the sides of our bags, and I just go down across each side. And we leave the top opening because that's what we're going to use to assemble the bag. So I do that both for the lining and the outer fabric. And with the lining, I leave about a 3-inch space there because that's what we're going to use to turn the bag right side out. So on one side, we'll leave a space, and on the other side, we'll just close it up all the way. Now, I like my corners to be boxed. You don't have to box yours, but I just think it looks a little bit better when you put the book inside the book sleeve. Lays a little bit flatter and it looks nicer. I just do 1.5 corners. So I just make a point on the lining and the outer fabric, mark 1.5, and then I fold the lining portion in half and mark that spot also because that's where we're going to add our straps. Now at the sewing machine, I just go ahead and sew across those lines that I just made for the 1.5-inch marks. And I'll do that across the lining and also the outer fabric. And it just makes a nice little pocket area, if you will, doing it that way. Now we're going to assemble the bag. Everything is sewn. I'm double checking to make sure the corners are attached properly. There's no seams, there's no holes, and we're going to go ahead and put the bag together. So now I turn the lining fabric right side out, and we're going to place it inside the outer fabric, making sure that both right sides of the lining and the right side of the outer fabric are touching. Now, the easier way to do this is to line up the corners. You want the outer fabric and the lining fabric corners, the edges to line up. So I do that first because that's the easiest way for me. So I clip on each side and make sure that those are lined up properly before I continue doing anything else. Once those are lined up, I attach my straps. Now the straps go in between the lining and the outer fabric. And I used that mark that I had made when I folded the outer fabric in half. I use that mark to determine where I'm going to lay my straps. So I usually just fold it in, roll it up, and just stick it right between the fabric pieces. And I leave a little bit hanging out in between the two just to make sure that I get it right when I'm going around sewing. So I line that up and put a clip there and do the same thing for the other side. You want to try to make sure that everything is as even as possible before you go ahead and sew the rest of it. You want to make sure that everything is attached and you're not going to have any issues. So now that I have the straps in there, I'm going to go ahead and go around and clip the remainder sections together. Trying to line up the fabric as best as I can and just go all the way around. Use as many clips as you need to, and then we'll go ahead and sew around the circumference of the bag. I removed the front part of my sewing machine just to help me get around the bag easier. It'll be less bulky when you're trying to sew around the edges. It's a little tricky to get the bag at the right angle when you have so many clips there, but I rather use the clips. Um, I don't care too much for the pins when I'm trying to sew around the bags. Now, sewing around the bag, I pay attention to where my straps are because I like to make sure that I double stitch along the strap edges, because when people are using the bags, the last thing you want is for the strap to start to tear away. So I pay attention to where the straps are because I go over it twice just to be sure. Now that we're done sewing around the top of the bag, we're going to start to turn it inside out. We're going to pull the um, outer fabric through the hole that we left in the liner and start to turn it inside out. Now, once it's being turned inside out, you want to go ahead and check to make sure that everything lines up right. Make sure that there's no holes, and which I found a hole in one section, so that's okay. You just turn it back inside out and go ahead and stitch that section over again. Now that it's stitched over again, I'm going to turn it back inside out just to make sure that I got it. And we'll double check over everything. Make sure all the corners look good. Make sure all the seams look good. We're going to double check that our straps are connected properly. I know I did go over them twice, but sometimes the fabric moves and it slips, so you just want to make sure that all the straps are connected properly and everything looks good. You want to do that before you close up your lining hole, because you don't want to double back and have to open things back up again. So now that everything looks good, we're going to go ahead and close the space we left open in the lining. Just fold the two pieces together, get it under the sewing machine, and try to sew the hole closed with the stitch as close to the edge as possible. Now that the lining is closed, we're going to go ahead and get our bag together. Earlier, I told you that the lining fabric was going to be 13 by 17 inches. The reason I did that was because I want to have a little bit of the lining coming through the front, the top of the bag. Um, what I do is I take it to the ironing board and I sew completely around, leaving a little bit of the lining fabric showing. I think it looks better this way. I just like the way it looks with that inner lining showing. So again, we just go right across the top and we top stitch all the way across, paying attention to the straps to make sure that they don't get caught in the stitching as you're going around. Now that we're done with the top stitching, I'm going to go over it, make sure there's not any loose threads, check to make sure that everything looks great. This fabric was from the Dollar Tree, which is amazing to me because it's perfect for a book sleeve. I'm glad you all joined me, and I hope that you guys can get creative soon too. Thanks for watching.